Welcome back to the Daily Drum on WHUR and Sirius XM Channel 141. This is the Insight segment. I'm Harold Fisher. Tonight, we turn our focus to Prince George's County, where tensions are rising within the school system. The Prince George's County Educators Association has taken a no-confidence vote against Superintendent House II. Teachers say his leadership style is disconnected and lacking collaboration. They feel unheard, unsupported, and say morale is at an all-time low. But what does this vote really mean? And what do educators want to see change moving forward? My guest tonight is Dr. Donna Christie, president of the Prince George's County Educators Association. Dr. Christie, thank you so much for joining this conversation and talking to us about these issues.
Thank you, Harold. Thank you for having me.
Sure thing. Let me just share a few fast facts. There are 131,000 students in 198 schools in the Prince George's County Public School System. House was appointed in 2023. He succeeded CEO Dr. Monica Golson. She retired and said part of her decision was based on political infighting with the school board. Now, House previously served as the superintendent of the Houston Independent School District in Texas, the 8th largest district in the nation and the largest in Texas. The number of superintendents over the past 24 years in Prince George's County is 9. So that's about one every 2.5 years. I want to ask you, averaging, I should say, why did the union feel it was necessary to issue a no confidence vote?
Absolutely. So we really see the school system as being in crisis. We're holding it together with what I refer to as grit and grace. Our educators are being stretched very, very thin. We have so many vacancies. We have very few substitute teachers that take jobs on a regular basis. So they're having to constantly cover for vacant positions and absent colleagues. And we just don't see where we are on a path that will right the ship, that will bring us into where we need to be, where we should be. And so we feel that there's a sense of urgency here.
Why do you suppose that is? The superintendent has only been there for 2 years. Suffice it to say, having covered the Prince George's County school system over the past 17 years, and being a product of the Prince George's County school system a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, the concerns that you're sharing were concerns that I heard as a student back in the 1980s. Nothing seems to have changed. So why do you think that is?
So I'm not going to speak to the entire history of
right,
the problem.
Yeah.
Then I will say
we don't have that long.
Yeah, we don't have that long, for sure. But I will say, when it comes in particular to staffing, I think Prince George's is often the canary in the mine. And so while we will have a problem first, as that problem spreads, and in this case, the teacher shortage, as that it spreads, right? So the problem gets broader. In Prince George's County, the problem gets deeper because it started here first in the state. And so as the vacancies and the shortage of teachers has spread throughout Maryland and across the country, it has only deepened here in Prince George's County.
Can you give me some specific examples of how you believe his management has impacted the teachers in the classroom?
Absolutely. I can give a really great example, which is how the office, the Equity Assurance Office functions. The Equity Assurance Office handles bullying and harassment complaints by our educators, discrimination cases, Title IX cases, reasonable accommodation cases for individuals with chronic conditions. and they have a very, very significant backlog. I wish I could tell you more about that backlog, but we have been asking for 2 years how many cases are in the backlog. They have not been able to give us a number. You ask, how many cases have you cleared? How is the backlog improving? They can't give specific and direct answers. And so we have educators throughout the system who are continuing to work in environments where they're experiencing bullying, harassment, discrimination. They're not getting the reasonable accommodations that they need. And there doesn't seem to be any, again, urgency to fix that problem, to clear that backlog. And there's a lack of transparency of what they are doing about it and how bad the backlog really is.
Why do you suppose that is?
I would say, just from my interactions, there's just a lack of management. There's a lack of putting in structures, there's a lack of accountability within the upper level of administration. Just something as simple, I'll suggest something. Well, do you not have a spreadsheet where you have all of the cases? So let's say somebody files a complaint against Donna Christie and somebody else files a complaint about Donna Christie. You can see that those two complaints are related and investigate them together. And they were like, no, we don't handle it that way. I'm like, and that just doesn't seem sensical to me. So why are we not holding these chiefs accountable to perform the duties of their job? Why are we not coming up with strategic plans and logic models that will allow these problems to be solved once and for all?
Do you believe that in this specific example that you just shared with us, that this is a problem that happened when Superintendent House began his tenure there, or was this a problem that continued from previous administrations?
I think in many cases it's a problem that he inherited.
Okay.
In most cases, I was excited for him initially when he was announced. I was excited. I was excited that there was somebody coming from outside the system that didn't have the connections, the nepotism, and the cronyism to keep people in place. So I was expecting him to come in and really assess the situation. I kept telling my colleagues, the other presidents, give him time. He's assessing the situation. Give him that first year. And I'm sure he'll make changes in the second year. But I see no evidence of those changes taking place. I've given him the time to do the assessment, and I'm not seeing the changes take place.
What attempts would you say have been made by the union, by yourself and your rank and file, to work with Superintendent House to address these issues, any of these issues of concern? Absolutely. So,
we meet as a union. We have labor management meetings every month. He does not attend those. That's with people under him. The Employee Labor Relations Office meets with us on those. And we meet with him. The first year when he first came, he only expected to meet with us as a union twice a year. We pushed back and we got 3 times a year that first year. This year he's increased it. We have one-on-one meetings with him every other month, and then on the off months, basically once a quarter, we meet with him individually, and once a quarter we meet with him as a labor group. All of the labor unions come together. He calls them the labor roundtable, and then he brings in the various chiefs for us to discuss our concerns with them during those meetings.
In a statement. And the statement that he has issued has been long, but let me kind of give the Cliff Notes, where he called this no confidence vote a distraction. He says that he is proud of his record, and he points to an increase in the graduation rate, bus service improvements, and a drop in the number of student incidents. Now, particularly as it relates to the bus service, that is a problem, as you suggested, is a region-wide or statewide issue. obviously. Everybody's having problems with that. But overall, what are your thoughts about his defense of his record?
I would ask in response of what can he say he did now with I'll give him the transportation, the attempts to fix that, and I want to give credit to Chief Trasker Coleman for working on that issue, but it did require an outside group coming in and doing an assessment and telling them how to fix the problem. They didn't come up with those solutions on their own. That's one of Superintendent House's hallmarks, is that he will hire consultants to tell him then what needs to be done, because even though we're paying him $350,000 a year, he seems to be unable to do those assessments himself and design solutions for the system. But when it comes to the other data, such as graduation rates, part of that's a regression to the mean. Part of that is, scores dropped significantly because of the COVID pandemic. And so we're seeing a natural rise that's the result of students being back in school full time and re-engaging in person with their academic studies. You're also seeing where some of that also, you want to attribute some of the problems to the prior administration. Graduation rates are based on 4-year cohorts. So he's only been here for 2. So excuse me, some of that credit also goes to Dr. Golson, who was here for the first 2 years of those 4-year cohorts. And finally, if we're doing statistical spin, an 80% graduation rate still relieves 20% failure rate, which means that 1 in 5 students are still not graduating. And I don't know that I would hang my hat on that statistic.
What message do you believe your rank and file are sending by this no confidence vote, and what do they want to come of it? Is this a warning? Is it a tap on the shoulder? How would you characterize this no confidence vote?
I think for them, it's please take our concerns seriously. I mentioned those meetings that we have with him throughout the year but it's the same meeting every quarter. We're still bringing the same concerns over and over again. And the response has frequently been, we'll look into that. We'll get back to you. And meeting after meeting, they're still looking into it and they're still getting back to us. Or the other response is gaslighting. That shouldn't be happening. Tell me what school you heard that from, and we'll deal with that individual issue. But I'm hearing it from my members from the North, from the South, from the Central. I, as president, don't bring it to the superintendent's attention unless I'm convinced that it's a systemic issue requiring a systemic solution. So what my members are asking for is systemic solutions, to hear that their issues are real and valid, that need a solution, and they need him to set that tone from the top. They need him to publicly and directly address the bullying and harassment that's going on by their administrators and within the culture of our schools. They need him to show that he's going to do something about the shortages. We need action from him. We don't need statistics. We don't need platitudes. We don't need Wednesday massages. We don't need free lunch. We need action. We need solutions to the problems that we have been reporting on since he arrived.
But Dr. Christie, I do need to take a break, but I did want to say before the break that we are indeed efforting an interview with Superintendent Millard House. And so hopefully we will hear from him sooner rather than later. I think it's also important that we do get his perspective on this. But we also want to remind our listeners, do not forget, you can hear this in every edition of the Daily Drum Insight segment via podcast on WHUR.com. The Original Quiet Storm with Raheem Devon is next on WHUR. This conversation continues on Sirius XM, channel 141 and 96.3 HD2 in just a few seconds. Welcome back to the Daily Drum on Sirius XM Channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. We continue our conversation with Dr. Donna Christie, president of the Prince George's County Educators Association. We're talking about the recent no confidence vote directed at County School Superintendent Millard House II. We were obviously talking about your concerns and the concerns of the rank and file regarding this no confidence vote.
Mhm.
In your view, how do you believe the superintendent's leadership is affecting student learning and classroom environments? I want to talk about that, and I think you kind of touched on a little bit of that about the discomfort that teachers are feeling about bullying. I'd like you to drill down a little bit more about that as well.
Absolutely. I mean, if you just look at, since we like numbers, the number of vacancies, right, that are in the school system, and we've been carrying give or take, it varies from day to day, but let's just say 1,000 vacancies throughout the year, throughout the course of the year. That's, even if you go conservative and say that there's only 30 kids in a class, that's 30,000 students without a full-time teacher, right? Where their instructional program is being cobbled together by various people giving up their planning time to cover the class. Or the classes have been divided up and spread, and so the class sizes are larger as a result of those vacancies, which puts more workload on the teachers. It also means that our students are in a situation where it's creating a lack of safety. There aren't enough adults in the building to be close enough to the kids to develop those relationships that they have that bond to say to your teacher, hey, I heard that this beef is about to jump off. Somebody should really talk to so-and-so so that can be, de-escalated before something bad happens. So I know that there's a report of less incidents. I'm not sure what less incidents that is. I haven't seen the data of how to drill down on that. But in general, our kids aren't having the opportunity to build relationships with their teachers. Teachers tend to be a child's confidant oftentimes. We're mandated reporters, for example, for child abuse for a reason, because we are the most likely people to observe and notice a behavior change or a child who's spacing out because of their trauma that's going on at home and they're distracted. Teachers should be the ones who observe and notice those details. But when a teacher is overwhelmed, when their class sizes are too large, when they're giving up all of their planning time and they don't have time to connect with the students, that really impacts the classroom culture. Students don't feel heard by their teachers as a result. They don't feel engaged and connected to their teachers, which is why we also have super high truancy rates, right? Kids who have disconnected, they're not showing up to class, they're not showing up to school, because they're not having that connection with their teacher that they should have.
I do want to go back to something that we did discuss earlier. And again, we don't really necessarily need to go through the whole history, but there seems to have been, not seems to, there has indeed been a new superintendent. It seems almost every 2 or 3 years since 1999. And as has been suggested in this conversation, it takes a while for a superintendent, even someone with experience like Superintendent Millard House, to kind of, hit the ground running. But is there something that is happening within the Prince George's County school system that suggests that this job is unmanageable? Is it an impossible job, and that those who take on these jobs in Prince George's, Montgomery, DC, Fairfax, wherever Baltimore City, that you just kind of go in and do the best you can, and there's no perfect solution?
Yeah, I think absolutely it's a difficult job. But that being said, Prince George's County has also been a stepping stone for superintendents. So superintendents have also used Prince George's County as a resume builder. And so they can go on to something else from here. So that's part of it. I also think, I proudly will say we're a strong union town. I will take pride in that we have strong labor, leaders within our community across the board, not just in education, but in the trades and our state employees and our county municipal employees as well, right? So we're a strong union, town, and it is expected that you come in expecting to have a relationship with your labor partners. I don't think Superintendent House was prepared for that. He had never worked in a bargaining state before with collective bargaining rights. So I think he took pride in his relationship with his labor partners coming in, but those were labor partners that didn't have the same rights as the unions in Maryland have and labor in Prince George's County. So for example, that first year he talked about having a really strong relationship and how great our relationship was going to be. But then he turned to a senior advisor, and a senior advisor says, so the superintendent will meet with you biannually. And I'm like, biannually? Surely that word doesn't mean what I think it means. You're only going to meet with us twice a year, twice a year, but you're going to have a great relationship with us. I'm like, I talk to my colleagues, other presidents around the state, their superintendents meet with them sometimes weekly. And you're telling me you're only going to meet with me twice a year? That's not starting off on a very strong, solid foot.
How do you believe that these difficulties that this no confidence vote has brought up are affecting teacher retention and certainly recruitment in the district? Again, having enough teachers, this is not a new issue, and I'm sure that you probably have seen that viral video that was on social media about a young teacher who spoke to the Prince George's County School Board. She was passionate, as we say. She did not stutter as it relates to, her concerns. I'm sure that she is not alone, not only in her passion for children and education, but also her concerns about problems.
Absolutely. Kara did a great job. I was in the room. I spoke directly after her with that speech. And and it took a while for the room to quiet down. The room was filled with educators that night, and the cheering if you had been in the room, you would have felt the energy and how heard our members felt by what she said. She was sharing her experience, but it was shared by everyone in the room. And so there was a lot of cheering and applause. It took quite a while for them to calm down so that I could then give my testimony immediately after her. But that is absolutely the sentiment. And she was speaking really from her generation's perspective as a young person, but I would say our veteran educators feel just as disrespected. They don't feel that their time and experience in the school system is valued. And so I think that's also driving retirements.
Mm-hmm. We have not yet heard from the school board about this no confidence vote. Mm-hmm. Have they spoken to you about their thoughts?
I have shared my concerns directly with them. I've spoken with the chairman, Chair Jackson. I've shared my thoughts, my ideas. He's taking them. I think he's taking them very seriously and under consideration. I know that the school board meets this Thursday, and so we will certainly be looking for some kind of something to come out of that, some kind of direction, some statement to the county of where we go from here. And I'm definitely calling on Chair Jackson to lead in this moment, to demonstrate leadership. He's very diplomatic. I enjoy talking with Chair Jackson. He's a diplomat. He wants to preserve the integrity of the school system, the reputation. He wants to build the reputation of the school system. He's very protective of that. And so I am putting a lot of trust in him and our school board to do what Prince George's County needs.
What do you think needs to be done? Do you think that Superintendent House should resign or be fired?
I think if he's not going to meet the moment and really develop a real partnership with his labor partners, then I don't think this is the right environment for him to work in. And so I think that's a decision he's going to have to make in terms of whether or not he wants to resign and remain in this environment or return to a non-bargaining environment. At the end of the day, we want action and we want accountability. We want to know that we're going to have a district where there are goals and metrics put in place, that we've assessed the problem. There is a goal, there's a metric, there's a direction of how we're going to fix it. And there's a direct plan. There's a very clear and distinct plan of what we are going to do to address these long-standing issues and problems within the county.
I do want to go back to this issue of bullying. I'm really curious about that, particularly coming from a family of educators in Maryland and the District of Columbia. So I do have an understanding, albeit rudimentary, about what happens in the classroom since I've been in the classroom. I'm in the stone tablet days. But what's the problem? What are teachers telling you? When you talk about being bullied and harassed, is this directly related to the education of children, or are these issues outside of that? Is this because administrators are also feeling pressure to perform? How would you characterize all of that? It's a complex question, certainly.
It is, but it's one that I've spent a great deal of thinking about since I've been president now for 4 years. And it's been an issue to how to address it. And really, because I always speak on every issue of what are the root causes. Part of it, I think, is there are a lot of administrators who become administrators because they weren't earning enough in the classroom. I think the blueprint is and the career ladder that comes out of the blueprint is going to help keep teachers in the classroom where they belong. But there's a lot of administrators that some have a very unhealthy relationship with power and control. And they're maybe oftentimes for the first time in a position of authority. And so they go overboard. They don't understand the limits. They don't understand the difference between managing and leading. There's also those who are very insecure with their leadership and their management skills. And so they overcompensate by asking for just, asking teachers for their lesson plans all the time, or double checking and triple checking, did you put your grades in, and just kind of nitpicking their job performance versus supporting. A teacher wants to feel supported by their administrator. They want the administrator to come to them and say, what are you struggling with? What do you need from me to be a better teacher? That's what our teachers are looking for from their administrators, not, oh, hey, I noticed you didn't get 3 grades in this week, right? Or I'm going to write you up if you don't show me your lesson plan. Like that's right. It's how you approach the problem. If you see a teacher struggling, are you coming after them in a very punitive nature? Or are you coming to them and saying, I'm here to support you as your instructional leader? What can I do to support you? We have great administrators who do that. And you know what? They have fully staffed schools and they have very little turnover. But then we have the other schools that just can't seem to keep staff, right? And when you talk to that staff, what you find out is they're not being supported by their administrator. They're being bullied and harassed, and that's their experience of it, right? They're being managed, but they're being managed in a very heavy-handed way that's just unsupportive and very disciplinary oriented.
How do you believe the best administrators are made? Many people are under the impression that those like, Dr. Golson, those who came up through the ranks,
Mhm.
who understood what it was to be, a teacher, a first year teacher, a fifth year teacher, one who was able to develop those leadership skills and understanding while rising through the ranks to an administrative position. Is that
Mhm.
incorrect?
Uh, I sometimes I think, there's, and I'm not sure because I'm not an administrator and I don't represent administrators, so I really don't know and understand their process, to be honest. But
Mhm.
just full transparency on my part. But at the end of the day, you have to remember, because on top of having all there's the teacher vacancies, right? But there's also, we have, I think the number's around 1,500 conditionally licensed educators, and those are mostly career changers who didn't go through traditional teacher prep programs. So
Mhm.
they're really struggling because they're learning on the job. They're like an apprentice learning a trade on the job. And so when an administrator comes to someone who's struggling just to learn the job while doing it, and they're not feeling supported, right? That just really, it causes them to leave, right? Because they're already career changers. They had another career. I could just go back to my other career, right? Like, I wanted to give back to my community. I wanted to serve my community. I thought teaching would be a really great way to feel satisfied in that service call that they want to serve their communities. But at the end of the day, to then go into education and not feel supported by the people around you to learn the job, to excel and improve your craft and develop your craft as an educator, that just causes this revolving door of people coming and going and coming and going, because they're coming in, they know they're not prepared. We know they're not prepared. We know as a system when we hired them that they weren't prepared. That's why they have a conditional license. But we as a system then need to provide all the supports we can to help them become a lifelong educator and complete their career until retirement as an educator.
What impact do you believe the purging of federal government employees is having on the Prince George's County public school system, in that some of those people are looking to, as you said, find a second career because they've lost their federal government job?
Absolutely. Well, it's going to be an interesting little experiment here. I think one of my concerns is because they would come in with as not experienced, so you would be coming in at the bottom of the pay scale, which is currently not a living wage, right? So if you're coming off of a federal salary and maybe you've been there for quite a while and you're making some pretty decent money, can you really afford to come into Prince George's County and be a conditionally certified educator at the bottom of the pay scale?
Which
Right?
is
Right now, it's about $57,000.
okay. Mm-hmm.
Right? And so, can you continue to pay your mortgage or your rent? Can you continue to pay for your child's dance classes and your kids' soccer, tournaments? Can you afford to keep doing that on a teacher salary? Right? Or but I think there's a lot of jobs within the school system outside of my unit, perhaps in payroll, perhaps which has been extremely dysfunctional, maybe in HR, which hasn't been, obviously meeting the grade. So I think there might be a lot of opportunity to restaff and retool the central administration, the administrative side, with people who are experienced in those realms as well. So it's not just about my unit and the people that I represent. I think there's some opportunity for federal workers to help with the way our central administration functions.
This is another critical issue that has been heard for years and years and years. How would you characterize parental participation? And do you believe that bringing more parents in to participate is the responsibility of the teachers or the superintendent? Talk to me about that.
I think it's a little bit of both. One, we know research has said over and over again that parent involvement is one of the top predictors of student success, right? The more involved the parent is in their child's education, the more successful the child will be. So having parent involvement is key, but there's also policies that have to be in place in order to facilitate that. Their parents have to be fingerprinted. If they're going to be around children, they have to be fingerprinted. They have to have a background check. And so there's some functioning that needs to occur there to facilitate that. Teachers, our teachers build relationships with the parents who are engaged, but again, they don't have the time because they're so busy grading papers and planning lessons and covering for vacant colleagues, absent colleagues, that they don't have time to reach out. Just like I was talking earlier about the ability to build a relationship with the student. They really have even less time to build those relationships with those parents, to invite them into the classroom and have that partnership where they're volunteering and helping out around the school. But parent involvement is really key and instrumental. But again, our educators are stretched so thin that they don't have the opportunity to build those relationships with the parents.
If you had an opportunity to speak to Superintendent House, to sit down and talk to him one-on-one, what would you tell him that you believe would be most helpful or most impactful?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I would say I need him to be more decisive. I need him to, when I'm in the room and I'm meeting with him, he'll bring the chiefs in and he's more like a moderator of the meeting. And I'm not sure that he's actually in charge. I need him to say to the chief, this is what I need you to do. I need to see him giving direction. I need him being decisive. I don't need him to say, we're going to study that. We're going to look at that. We'll get back to you. I need him to be able to be decisive and say to the chief, this is the goal. These are the objectives. This is what I want to have accomplished when we meet with Dr. Christie again next month. I want to be able to show her that we have addressed this issue. I don't want, as union president, to come back next month with the same issues that I just talked about last month.
Do you believe that his lieutenants, the associate superintendents, do you believe they understand that there are these concerns, or they know where the problems are, where the bodies are buried, and that they are waiting on instruction? Do they have the independence? And you may not be able to answer this, but do they have the independence to make things happen?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. And I think therein lies the problem, is that I don't see anyone being decisive. I don't see anyone taking action. I see myself getting gaslit. I see myself being told, oh, that's not what should be happening. Tell me where that's happening. Let me address that individual situation. I don't see where there's a belief that these systemic problems really exist. And if you can't acknowledge a problem, how can I expect you to fix them? Right? I needed to start with acknowledging, yeah, this is a problem. You've been bringing this month after month, quarter after quarter for 2 years now. It hasn't gone away. Maybe we should actually do something about that. Right? And I've been in meetings where they've said, well, what's the solution? And I've sat there and I've given them solution. I can rattle off 3, 4, 5 solutions to the problem, but they don't. And it's fine if you don't like my solution. I'm not saying you have to do what I'm telling you to. I'm giving you ideas. If you don't like my solutions, come up with your own. Let's talk about it. Let's work through it together. How can we get to a yes? What can we do together? I'm telling you what the problems are. I'm telling you where I see the root cause of it is. I'm giving suggestions. You give some suggestions back. Let's talk about it. Let's work it through. Let's come with a plan. But that's not what's happening. I am providing, I'm telling you what the problem is. You're not believing me. And so therefore nothing is getting done.
In the wake of the no confidence vote, what is your message to your rank and file, your constituency?
We're going to continue educating the children of Prince George's County. We are going to continue teaching. That night when Kara gave her speech, or maybe it was the meeting before that, the refrain was our members were standing up and they were talking about all the things they do outside the classroom. And they were ending with, and still I teach. And still we will teach in Prince George's County. Our educators will continue to show up every day for their students and do the very best that they can. And I believe in them. I support them. I want them to know that all of this is to bring about the change that they have been begging for, and they have been crying out for and asking for the support. And so I believe that, it was a dramatic and bold move, but I think that's where we are in order to get the attention to the issues that are needed in order to push the agenda forward and get solutions, real solutions to these problems. This was what was necessary at this moment.
Dr. Donna Christie, President of the Prince George's County Educators Association. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. We will certainly stay in touch, and hopefully there will be a meeting of the minds, a resolution for the sake of not just the teachers, but for the children that they are educating. So again, thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Sure thing. That is the Daily Drum for this Tuesday, June 10th. I'm Harold Fisher. Good night.